All right, guys, let's go on to question number 3. And we'll start with the champion from the last round, Eric Brewer. Are you for, or against having a real estate business partner?
A real estate business partner. So, man, that's a tricky question. I think I'm all for it, but too many people do it too early. They go into a partnership because there's a portion of the business that they're not necessarily good at, or they want to share the responsibility. And in order to get the engagement they want from an employee position, they bring in a partner. And that generally, I don't know many partnerships that have been successful. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but I think generally they go into it with the wrong mindset. After 15 years of being in business, I feel capable of identifying a good partnership today. So I'm for it, but I think expectations need to be clear, and there needs to be an easy way to figure out each person's contribution to the organization and make sure that that compensation is in direct alignment with what they contribute.
Okay, let's go over to RJ Bates.
So I'm lucky enough to have ignorantly stumbled upon one of the best partners in existence with Cassie, but I didn't know what I was doing to get into that partnership. I didn't know how to properly vet out if that was going to work. It just happened to work out. And from there, that led to a lot of failed partnerships. When we tried to expand into new markets, it was just like, let's do the same thing that RJ and Cassie did. Let's do that with a third person, and it failed. I agree with what Eric's saying. I think a partner can be a valuable asset if vetted out correctly. It's just like doing due diligence on buying an asset that you're going to hold long term. You're making a marriage forever. Otherwise, you don't intend for that business to exist forever. So if you're not going to put it into due diligence to make sure that's the person you want to do business with for forever and ever, then no, you should not have a partner.
Okay, Steve Trang.
So I recently partnered up with Paul Sparks on a different product, and I learned a lot from him. And one of the things I learned from him was maximum upside and least amount of risk, right? And we're talking about maximum upside and least amount of risk. Then one of the things you want to do is kind of like Eric alluded to is this due diligence, right? Like, let's have this expectation, let's have this dating for a little bit. And, you know, I feel like I'm the biggest hypocrite because I've been pretty much anti-partnerships. You guys listen to it on the podcast. And at the same time, I've got several partners in several businesses. And I did recently go through a recent business divorce, and I've heard a bunch of other recent business divorces as well, right? So I think you got to be very clear. If you're going to do it, you got to be very, very clear on the expectations, what the other person is responsible for, accountable for. And on top of that, how will you hold them accountable if they don't live up to their end of the bargain? So I am pro partnership, but you got to walk into it slowly over time, be very clear on expectations.
Okay. And Leon G. Barnes, bring us home with your thoughts.
So this one is, I talk more people out of partnerships than I advise to get into them. We have 300 members in the Collective Genius, and the number one reason that anyone ever leaves our mastermind community is a partner breakup. And usually these guys have all given you great advice. Everyone on this panel has partnerships currently, or has had them in the past. And I seek sage advice when it comes to these type of things. And generally, those that have been in partnerships will tell you to stay away from it if you can, with one exception. And that's what, again, all these guys have said previously, which is you have to treat this like you're underwriting a major real estate transaction. You have to be on the same lines. You have to have the same core values. And in 20 years, you both are still going to be aligned for the same type of growth. If not, it doesn't work.
Okay. The voting is open in the chat, and the floor is open for you guys as well.
You know, it's funny. I actually, I'm doing something with Jason Lewis, right? We've had it out for about almost a year now. And we're finally rolling it out, like, right now. But he's like, hey, now that we're finally ready here, let's have a meeting about being very clear on our expectations, because the worst thing that can possibly happen is that this thing fails, or this thing is wildly successful and it hurts our friendship. So I thought that was a really mature thing to do. And it's like, I'm glad he's doing that, because I wouldn't have done that.
But see, what you just said is it's a mature perspective. All too often, I think Eric talked about this earlier, they get into partnerships early because you need a money partner. You bring the information, the skill set, and they bring the money. Well, each of you, when you bring that type of partnership in 10 years, may have different viewpoints of where you want that company to go. And all too often, that's where I see, hey, Leon, we're going to have to step out for a little bit in the community because I want to grow to 100 transactions a year and have a $10 million business. But my partner and I started with 5 years ago. He doesn't want to do that much work. So we're not going to be able to make this work. And that's where those partnerships, it's usually early on the ones that fail the most.
And on top of that, being the money partner becomes a lot less valuable as a company is successful. And then it brings in bitterness.
I think Steve gave the best advice out of all of this is have an open and honest discussion with your partner about how are we going to handle the situation when one of us doesn't hold up our end of the bargain? Because that is where, even for me and Cassie, me and Elijah's been my best friend since 5th grade. I've known Cassie for 15 years. That's a difficult conversation to have, even when it is your best friend. Like, hey, man, this was your responsibility to the business, and you're not holding up your end of the bargain. There's a lot of emotions involved in that. I think that's the key to making sure that that expectation is set before any partnership is put together.
Okay.
I can tell you this, even if your best of friends last on this, and I'm just going to tell you it's the last thought. Even if you're great friends going into a partnership and you split and on great terms, the relationship's never the same. It just isn't. If you've known someone for 20 years and there's a split, even on good terms, you'll never be the same that you were before. So that open dialogue, that robust dialogue has to be had.
Okay. Great points all around. I got to say, RJ, I love the way that you're using the titanium plate to emphasize the points.
Absolutely. And apparently, because Steve said something intelligent, all of my votes should go to Steve.
I saw that. We also do have another comment in there from Cassie. She says that RJ and she have the best 2 business partners on the planet. So I can appreciate that love is in the building today. The voting is still open, but it looks like we got a landslide victory in the works for RJ Bates III. So another point to RJ on this one. You made up for last round. I gave the point to Brewer. I'm so sorry. But you came back and you got it. It's got to be the plate. It's got to be the plate.